Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about the case study involving uh, why meteorologists don't acknowledge their mistakes. So, the first question: what are the risks of not acknowledging mistakes or transgressions in families, intimate relationships, or work settings?
Well, I think that if you don't acknowledge the mistakes that have been in play, then you really do not know or are aware that something is being done wrong. Whether or not your actions are wrong, you verbally said something that was wrong, how do you exactly know? Because a lot of times we don't see that there's an issue unless somebody points it out to us. They're kind of looking from the outside in. So if we don't acknowledge that something is wrong, how can we correct the mistake? How can somebody give you constructive criticism if you don't acknowledge it? How can somebody tell you you're doing something wrong, don't do it, and it just goes in one ear and out the other? Like you're never accepting responsibility for the mistakes that or bad decisions that you're taking.
Yeah, I agree. I think that just failing to acknowledge his mistakes or any transgressions can kind of just delay any sort of remedy to the situation, or just delay any correction that you can make. I think that just taking the ownership, or even just being open to criticism can really just expedite the process of um, you know finding a remedy, like I said, and kind of correcting the mistakes, or just acknowledging the inaccuracies um, that people bring up in your forecast, for these meteorologists.
And then I think in a family or an intimate relationship, it might seem like the person who made a mistake doesn't care about how it affects other people. And then in a work setting, if a worker with lower status makes a mistake and doesn't acknowledge it, it can seem like they're trying to get away with something, like pull one over on the people with higher status. Um, do you guys have anything else to say about that one?
Um,
Um, I think a lot of reasons too is, what do they call it? Like face giving or something,
Mhm.
where
Face
you're
saving.
trying. Yeah, there we go. Face saving. So
Hmm.
you're trying to yeah, there something wrong can be said, but you don't agree to it for the sake of you feel that your action, even though it's wrong, you don't want to admit to anybody, so you kind of don't acknowledge it, and that in essence makes you feel like you're face saving yourself,
Mhm.
because it's like, well, no, I didn't do anything wrong, even though you clearly did, but it makes you feel internally better. It's kind of like saying, I don't care what anybody else thinks, as long as I think it's right, then it's okay.
Mhm.
So not acknowledging this, you know, it's kind of like a face saving, but you do it, it's all wrong. You're in a family setting, you're in a work setting where you should be open to constructive criticism, and then being able to acknowledge your faults to make your family better as well as your work setting.
Okay. So, question two: when might it be appropriate and even beneficial to use this strategy?
Okay, so I'm trying to find the strategy. Anybody help me out?
It's let's see.
I think it's on page 201, or 200. Maybe it is 200 exactly. They're talking about the defensive strategies.
Oh, okay,
Um,
defensive strategies. Uh,
right? Yeah, yeah.
so it says, when is it appropriate and beneficial to use these strategies? I think that they're I think the defensive strategies, like the alignment actions, is more of, say, for example, it's one of those things, like it's the example that it provides is work related. So in a work setting, like the first question, shows, this is one of those times where you want to be able to communicate within the group to try to, fix this. So even though it's a defensive strategy, or a defensive strategy and its alignment action, I think it's it might be beneficial, but it may be seen as like BSing. Because, say, for example, on page 200, it says, when the guy shows up late, he says, I'm really sorry, my car would not start. I think at that point, when you're late, people don't really care about what excuse you have. The fact of the matter is that you're late. You
Mhm.
can tell me the worst thing ever, and they're gonna be like, okay, you're full of it, you're late, you're just coming up with an excuse now.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be beneficial depending on how good of an excuse you have, but for the most part, it's non-believable.
Yeah, and they kind of discuss that further down in that page, just with the apology, which is that it valued as an expressed regret over an earlier action, which I guess is something that in the meteorologist case they don't really they don't apologize for their actions, but and just a family setting or something like in an intimate relationship or work setting, just I think it helps to like own up to that, but then more importantly, like showing that you won't do it again. That it's that trying to think of the word for it. Just showing that like some plan of action or how it won't happen, that you will try to prevent it from
Showing
happening.
like remorse for what happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then, pertaining to kind of the same scenario as in the meteorologist case study, I think it would be appropriate to not apologize for a mistake in like a team sports setting. So like if a team captain makes a mistake during the game, they shouldn't apologize to their team during the game because it would cause more of a distraction rather than helping anything. If they have an
Right.
apology, they should apologize after the game. They could also be seen as weak, I guess, by the other players.
Yeah.
And they might lose faith in the ability of the person that's supposed to be their leader out there.
Mm-hmm.
I got an example for that. In basketball, you live by the three or you die by the three, right? You live by it or you
Right.
die by it. Let me tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, you throw it up. It's a three. Everybody knows it's risky. Goes in, boom, you're good. Goes out, hey, everybody knows. Same thing with the weatherman. He says it's gonna be freaking cloudy, and it's cloudy. Cool, everybody agrees. He says
Yeah.
it's gonna be rainy, and it doesn't rain. Like nobody hates him, because it's like one of those things where it's like they don't apologize because they're living or dying, but kind of so to speak, by the weather that they're giving out.
Mhm.
Hey, it was sunny out there. It's sunny. See, I was right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sunny out there, but it rained. Oh my, oh, you knew. The
Yeah.
weather cannot. The weather's not going to be
And then in
accurate.
that same case study, they talk about how they specifically use percentages that can't be accurately disputed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else on that question? Or are we good?
No, I think we're good for the next one.
Okay. So, question 3. Does a person's status affect his or her ability to rely on this strategy?
I'm gonna go with yes. Just for the simple fact that no matter what walks of nature or walks of life you are in, I think status has a lot to do with it. Some people feel like, hey, well, I'm at a certain status. I don't need to say this. I don't need to say that. I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to plead my case. I said what I said. You're either gonna believe me or you're not. And I mean, that can be detrimental if you're in a relationship or in a work setting. But sometimes people just have that mindset of like, okay, I said what it is. I said what I said. And one of my pet peeves is when somebody says, it is what it is.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't care about what you said, so then therefore it is what it is. So,
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like
and
agree to disagree.
yeah,
Where
it's like yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's the same way. So it's like, what do you do exactly? Do you it is what it is, or do you actually try to find a defensive reason and kind of mitigate for yourself that this happened and it's justified?
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in the work setting, I guess definitely that with that power distance that we've learned about, like you said, the kind of higher up individuals, like upper division management, they don't necessarily need to apologize for things that they've kind of earned that ranking of um, they made the call, and if it's wrong, kind of like the forecast example, like when it rains and it's sunny, when you predict it's going to rain but it's sunny out, like, okay, so be it, I was wrong and we see that. But I think the lower you are in the ranks of a work setting, it's really like you, I think, are naturally going to be more apologetic, and you can't really refuse to apologize. Like, you have to own up to those things more than an upper division management would have to.
Mhm.
It's just like when an upper management makes a bad decision, they say, "Oh, it is what it is."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then I also think that status does affect a person's ability to rely on this strategy. And in Western society, it seems like people with higher economic status are somewhat easily forgiven, and their mistakes are kind of forgotten and swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
And then another example is like a parent who has higher status over the children in the family. Um, Depending on the severity, I suppose they shouldn't they shouldn't apologize or acknowledge they made a mistake, because it could seem as if they're letting their kids down. But if it's
Yeah.
more severe, it would be appropriate to acknowledge their mistake, so it wouldn't create a rift between the parent and the kid, and it would show that the parent can actually see the effect of their mistake on the kid.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
Right.
got
for sure.
anything else on that one?
I'm
No.
good on that.
No, good.
That one? Okay. On to 4. What are the consequences of if if the strategy is used in situations where others clearly see it as inappropriate?
Um, well, I think if you use it in a situation where others deemed it inappropriate, then you are now losing credibility to whatever it is you're trying to say. They're going to consider inappropriate, and by default, whatever it is you have to say, they don't care about it. Why? Because they already deemed that it wasn't the proper thing to say. So then, therefore, it's, why should I listen to you if if this information is wrong to begin with? So it's kind of one of those things where they'll give you the ear because they have no choice. They'll listen to you, but they're discarding it as it is. They're
Mm.
discarding the fact that this information has been considered inappropriate. So, like, why even try accepting it or acknowledging it?
Mhm.
Yeah, which kind of brings it into the agree to disagree point that we made.
Yep.
That, like, what is the point of these disputes, and kind of like a checks and balances system when you're not going to show any remorse or any sort of adjustments that you can make if you're just going to know that you're both going to disagree at the end of this. It really just shows there's no credibility, and there's no, I guess, like, you're not being open-minded or coachable, is, I guess, the word.
Yeah, coachable is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it can ruin specific relationships, because if a person makes a mistake and they don't acknowledge it, it seems like they don't care how it affected the other person or the consequences of that itself. Um, it can also make them seem like they're dishonest and can't be trusted, as you mentioned, with credibility. Um, yeah. So, anything else for that one?
But now
Like the
we're doing
last
good
one.
on time. We're doing good on time, so that's good.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, question 5. Finally, do you personally have any experience with this strategy? Have you employed it? Has somebody else employed it with you?
Yes, I've have done that before. I have, relayed or came up with my own source of information. And even though it was wrong, because of the position that I was in, you're talking about the whole power balance and all that. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of those things where it's like, it was wrong information, but I had to be confident and deliver it as if it was correct information. I know that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's wrong in like so many different levels. But it's kind of one of those things when like a company's trying to save face by telling
Yep.
you, no, you're not getting fired. However, there are some changes that are coming in the future and it's unpredictable what they're gonna do with everything else.
Mm,
So it's kind of like face saving by saying, I'm not gonna fire you. It's gonna be dependent upon what the other company is bringing forth.
Hmm.
So you know you're deliberately saying something that is not accurate, but for the sake of your power balance and saying, I don't have to disclose all the information to you. I'm going to say what I have to say, which is saving face, to make it seem like everything's okay when in fact it's not.
mm. Yeah, I think that yeah, one of my experiences has been with a law firm that I was working with last semester, with this internship, and they really didn't have a sort of training they go through. It was kind of all expected of you to know what to do and how to do it. And they really didn't. I mean, and then you'd see some of like my coworkers on similar levels struggle with um, kind of learning their system and all that. And even though that they'd say
Oh, the sound cut out
already,
there.
oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I can hear you.
Good? Okay, yeah. Yeah, just at the law firm, there was other coworkers as well that it was just hard to learn these things without being taught them, and they kind of refuse to teach you these things. They want you to just learn it through repetition and all that, but then they get angry at if there were things wrong, and they'd be like, why didn't you know this? And it's like, because we weren't taught it. And they just didn't show any signs of adjustments, or they didn't want to adjust their system of training and all that. And so it really was kind of paradoxical in a way, thinking that you don't need a training system, but you expect them to know it already. And they just really didn't. They refused to apologize or show any sort of adjustments.
It's kind of like they blame it on you and your ability to retain the knowledge. It's like, I don't want to train you, but I expect for you to know it. And when you make
Yeah,
a mistake, I'm going to say, you should have known it, or you should have known this
exactly.
information.
Yeah, exactly like that. So similar to this kind of stuff. Mhm.
So then, my experience, I actually employed it. So in high school, I played goalie for my team's lacrosse team. And if the team we were playing against scored a goal, rather than feeling down and feeling like I let my team down, I was encouraged to have a short-term memory and be focused on stopping the next shot. Um,
Mhm.
I think that that was a case where it was useful to kind of avoid my mistake because
Mhm.
it benefited the team as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of goes back to one of my coaches for baseball. He used to always say, like, if there's a bad play, or like if just give up a home run, or he just yell from the dugout, just flush it next play, because it's
Mhm.
just gonna lead into the next play, and it's gonna affect the rest of the game. See, I know what you mean by that.
Or like when I used to play water polo, and then, no, I'm just playing. I never played water polo. I just wanted to say something.
More
Okay.
sports references.
Well, I
All right, guys.
good on time, so I am